Good morning, everybody. I'm Brandy Kelly, and I'm a superintendent on a mission to lead with hope. Today, my guest is Dr. Will Deyamport III. He is an educator, a trainer, an author, and a podcaster. Welcome to the podcast, Dr. Will.
Thank you. I appreciate you bringing me on.
Yes, so we're going to start off, as I start off every podcast. I want you to tell the listeners about your story. How did you get to this place in your life?
Wow. I don't know. I was just one of those people. I was just an interesting kid. I just had a lot of energy and a lot of ideas. I used to love staying up late at night, watching TV, especially old movies, whether it was Cary Grant or Busby Brickley, I think it was Busby Brickley or whatever his name was. He used to have all these movies and people had these big routines or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I just, fell in love with movies and I ended up going to film school and I had just a lot of ideas of things that I wanted to do. I wasn't a very good student in school. I didn't do very well in math or science. English and social studies were my subject areas. I didn't study, but classes that I could be engaged in terms of being able to pay attention. Of course, I did well in, and I just movies. I love them. I can go. Hey.
Yeah.
And so it was just life happened, and I graduated from school, and I did not again have sort of a direction of where I was going to go. And I had this idea of, hey, I'm going to write a movie script.
Mm-hmm.
And I just started sort of substitute teaching. And I started working with, I met this Spanish teacher, and she wanted me to work with her kids. And I started doing that. And because she knew I liked Latin music, and so I taught her kids how to salsa and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And we prepared them for a foreign language sort of festival they had at a university, and it was cool working with the kids. And then I ended up going to Boston for a job, and I did that. I was a college and career coordinator. So I worked at this magnet school, which was really awesome to do that. And it was a great experience for me because, here I am, born and raised in Mississippi. Here I am going to Boston, working with kids who were, many of them, first generation students whose parents came from all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
Living, in a place that I had never been, and experiences all in these different cultures, and ending up meeting my wife, and coming back. And the next thing I know, I'm in this Twitter world, meeting people and hooking up with people like, Eric. And the next thing I know, I'm working why I'm working now. So that's why I say, like, I don't know how I got here, but I'm here now. So
Yeah.
it's one of those things where I never mapped out, how I got here. I just got here.
Yeah. And you've written the book, The Edupreneur. And
Yes.
so tell us, where is here? Where are you now? What are you doing currently besides promoting your book?
Well, I'm a district instructional technologist for K through 12 school district, where primarily my role is to work with teachers in reimagining technology in the classroom. My focus is to get them to teach with the learning management system that the district has, which is Schoology, and to make sure that they are using it with intention, right, with purpose,
Right.
And I'm trying to, with this, making sure that we have some uniformity with it, and with some creativity with it, some flexibility. Because I know, with teachers, what I'm trying to do is to not, stifle them with it. But again, I do want to make sure that, across the board, we don't have chaos with what's going on in there. And then making sure, once we have that we are making sure that uh, teachers are giving students uh, some voice and allowing them to go beyond the, oh, I'm just substituting what I would normally do with the paper, but now, hey, I'm podcasting,
Mm.
or I'm doing video to do this, or wow, I am building something with tech, or I'm doing this. So, it's gradual, but I'm building, and then every place has those teachers who are always first
Mhm.
to grab and to do things and bring others that are a bit hesitant along, and trying to, I guess, reawaken that creative monster in all of them. So that's uh, where I am this year.
Yeah, and you hit on something that I think is important, giving these kids voice and choice, giving these teachers voice and choice. It lights up our brains. It helps us to be engaged in what it is that we're doing. And then going back to when you were in school, you were talking about, being very interested in film. We have a course at our school, film is literature. And, we have a very creative teacher who engages the students, but we know that students are more engaged if they're doing. And I think technology is an important way to engage them in that learning. But from your perspective, in your opinion, how do we balance that? So I believe that it's the people, not the programs, that makes our schools great. Teachers are why schools are great. Um, and whenever you think about technology and you think about that, how do we balance that to give the kids enough to engage them, but not overwhelm them with technology?
I think it's about having them do with the technology, right?
Mhm.
They don't have to get the information from the tech. The teacher can still uh, be the info. I don't want to say be the person who gives the information,
Right.
but for me, I always tell teachers, because a lot of teachers who are very hesitant to come along and sort of give up that control.
Mhm.
Uh, I tell them, your job is to really be the one to prepare them to go at it alone, right?
Mhm.
So be that person who sets them up when you're introducing that lesson,
Right.
right? To release them to be independent and allow them to use that tech to show them that to show you that they understand the
Mhm.
material. And this is where tech can be great in doing that. And even if you are doing baby steps and allowing that to be assessment, then
Mhm.
let them do that so you don't have to grade papers. All right. Because if you want to, I tell people all the time now, if you want to go home and grade 130 papers, then you do that.
Mhm.
But if you want to let Schoology go home and just do that in seconds, and then you can then let it do item analysis,
Yeah.
and then allow it to again grade by standard, where you can go by and go, oh, these are some standards I need to go back and touch, or
Mhm.
these are questions where I'm looking at, oh, my students are having issues with these, then I need to go back and remediate, or I need to go touch on this. That is also helpful to you as well. So, this is where I see where technology is very helpful in, allowing you to better do your job. So it's not about having these tools replace you, because I tell teachers it's not having them there all day. It's
Hmm.
every day, right? But not all day, because I never say all day, because that's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
But it is about you finding your your lane, particularly because I tell teachers nobody wants to hear you talk all day,
Hmm.
because one, none of you. Some of you just ain't got the gift. Let's be real. Some of you just ain't got the gift for the lecture. And because we've all been in that college class before, where we have sat in there where that college professor got that PowerPoint up, and we're like, "Oh my gosh, we got another 40 minutes of this."
Yeah.
And so, you don't want to do that to a bunch of 8-year-olds. So,
Mhm.
understand your gifts as well. So, figure out what you do best, and then figure out where you can bring in tech, so tech can do what it does best. And then I think find that happy medium with that.
Yeah, I just had this conversation with somebody earlier this week, and they asked about AI and if I thought that AI would replace the teacher eventually, and no way. There's no way. We cannot provide education without the teacher. The teacher is the most important part of this equation. And the student, the teacher and the student together, that's where the magic happens. And I think it's
Mhm.
important for us to remember that tech is a tool. It's a tool to give back time, and time is what we all need more of. So I love that you're providing that for your teachers. You're providing that training for your teachers. Um, Part of your bio on LinkedIn, you talked about the hope gap, and you talked about your work being, um, you know, working towards closing that hope gap. Tell us more about that, Dr. Will.
Well, the hope gap is about, I remember the work that I did in Boston, and I remember my own self as a kid. When you are working with kids, and I'm going to say this, I'm just going to be, I'm not going to be gentle with this. I'm just going to just say it with my whole chest.
Put it out there. Just put it out there.
Kids who come from certain environments, whether they be low income, whether they, inner city,
Mhm.
Appalachia, etc. These kids come from environments where they don't see certain examples. All right.
Mhm.
They don't see the doctors at home. They don't see the lawyers at home. They don't see uh, these upper middle class people in home, in the community. They don't see these. They see certain uh, people.
Mhm.
And so when it comes to school and how they may participate in school, how they may see the importance of school, how they may see careers, how they may see their place in the world, they will place limitations upon themselves
Mhm.
because the world is small to them.
Yep.
And it is important to make their world larger, expand their world. And how you do that is by whether it be virtual field trips or actual field trips, bringing in guest speakers, bringing in different activities where they can engage in different learning activities, where they start to again see themselves doing things, bigger things,
Mhm.
that they can say, wow, I can do this.
Right.
Right. And so, in my particular school district and population, we're talking about a population that is, 98% students of color.
Mhm.
So now if you're talking about bringing in professionals of color, where now these students can see people who look like them,
Mhm.
right? Who are doctors, lawyers, engineers, they work in tech. Now they can see, oh, that can be me because I see someone who looks exactly like me.
Mhm.
Or you zoom in someone who works for Microsoft. They see, wow, that looks like me. You
Mhm.
take someone on a college tour, and they see people walking around campus who looks like them, looks like them. They sit in on a campus, on class. Professor looks like them. They say all those things. Again, the world that they thought they knew isn't the world that exists. Now, you don't have to tell that student as a teacher to do the work. They're going to do the work themselves
Mhm.
because they want to do the work because they have a world to get to.
Yeah. Perception is reality, and they
Yeah,
have to see it to be
yeah,
it, right?
yeah,
And I think that the most powerful driving force is when you have a sense of purpose.
yeah.
You know who you are, you know what you wanna be, and you have that sense of purpose, and every one of our kids need it. I'll even go further and say every one of our teachers need it. You know, sometimes I think as teachers and school leaders, we are our biggest obstacle because our world is too small. We are too focused on what is right in front of us instead of looking outside of our organizations at what's going on in the larger landscape. And so I think that's a powerful message, you know, closing that hope gap. Um, First and foremost for our students is a very powerful mission, and I look forward to watching how you go about doing that in your work. But transitioning into the next question, leading with hope is my framework. It's my brand, and the next question has to do with leading with hope as a system of self efficacy. H stands for habits, O for optimistic outlook, P for passion, purpose, and perseverance, and E stands for excellence. So, Dr. Will, which one of those areas resonate most with you and why?
Uh, Habits.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. Because habits impact everything.
Yeah, absolutely. You build from your habits.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
Because you can't. I mean, you can't have excellence without habits, right? If you're not putting in the work every day,
Hmm.
if you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing every day,
Hmm.
you can't you can't get to that point of being your best, right? You can't, and even with persistence, right? That's about being and doing what you need to do every day. It's all about, you know. So, uh, and that's what I got to get better at. Even with, with my habits, because
Yeah.
because I even admit that I have been coasting uh the last few years because I started out really gung ho, really pushing myself,
Hmm.
and I just got real comfortable, and I've sat back and I've looked at certain people and I'm like, oh, these people getting this getting recognized,
Hmm.
and they're getting awards, they doing all this stuff. But I was like, you know what? I have not been putting in the work like I used to. My habits. I've just sat back and I've
Mhm.
been coasting. I've just been doing it. I haven't been doing what I used to do. So I just got to get back to doing the work.
Yeah.
Um
And in my opinion, I think it kinda starts with self-reflection
yeah,
and that increased level of self-awareness, because we have to have that sense of self-efficacy to build, and that's something that I'm not good at. I'm not good at sitting still, and
mhm,
in order to self-reflect and become more self-aware, I have to schedule that time. I have to put it on my calendar or it doesn't happen. I fill my days, I fill my hours. And so, you know, in my life, what is scheduled gets done. So I've got to put it on my schedule, and then I'll self-reflect. I'll look at I do a self-improvement plan. I look at my goals and I keep working towards those goals. But it's definitely an intentional practice of self-reflection and self-awareness to get better and to get to that point that you want to be at in doing the important work that we're all doing in education. And there's no more important work than education, in my opinion. So I would encourage you to, keep pressing forward and keep doing that work. And Dr. Will, as we move into the next question, for me, getting to where I am was through a lot of adversity. There's a lot of things that I have dealt with and overcome. Is there any adversity that you would be comfortable talking about today that has helped you to peel back that onion and to determine why you want to be who you are today?
Um, I would s- I would just say being broke,
Mm-hmm.
like, and I know being, and when I say broke, it's all. I'm not gonna say that I have not been broke in a way that uh, I've been broke, so it's not. Uh, so I don't want to say in that way, so people have that type of picture. But um, I have been, without, um, and that has had uh, an impact,
Mm-hmm.
on me. So, I've, growing up, I've, been, free lunch. I have been on public assistance. I've had, again, sometimes hand me downs and everything like that. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, uh, so I guess, when you, and it's one of those things to where I guess anyone who has had those experiences, when you think about not having sometimes the idea of, well, I don't want to go back, or I don't want to have that experience again. And again, it's all relative because, as a 50-year-old now and seeing the world, as it is, and understanding that there are people who have it worse than I have ever had. I have a different type of a perspective for it, but it definitely had an impact on me then as a child. Growing up.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely, it impacted me, knowing that I did not, uh, ever want to struggle, financially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think having those experiences, um, as difficult as they may be, it helps you to relate to students that are living in those experiences as well. It helps you to understand where they're coming from. It helps you to understand their reality. And sometimes we have to understand them in order to relate to them and connect with them and help them to create a better future for themselves. So
It's
thanks
it,
for sharing
it's
that.
di- it's difficult though, Doc.
Mm,
It's difficult because I don't know how much compassion I have. Because sometimes in my mind I'm like, ooh,
yeah.
ooh, because I'm one of those people that I'm like, you. It's like you. It's like you gotta want it and you gotta work,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? So when I talk to kids, and especially when I hear them like unfocused,
Yeah.
right? And I just spoke to some kids a couple of weeks ago. So I spent the whole day in 2 classes, talking to kids about careers in tech, some careers in tech.
Mm-hmm.
And I even told them, listen, my first go around in undergrad, I told them, I said, listen, don't do what I did. I had a little too much time. I had a little too much fun.
Mm-hmm.
But I told them like you want to be, you just want to be focused and you don't want to play around. And I told even in high school,
Mm-hmm.
I said you don't want to play because I did some things that I wasn't smart and I had looking back, excuse me, I didn't have proper guidance
Mm-hmm.
from a guidance counselor who let me actually stay in a class that I did not need.
Mm.
And I ended up graduating from high school with a 2 point something GPA. And I should have dropped that class.
Yeah.
I didn't need it to graduate.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I did have a 16 on the ACT. And uh, I was cool with that because the college I went to was a great HBCU that was just a
Mm-hmm.
phenomenal school. But I told the students, I was like, "Well, you're in ninth grade now. Your GPA for college starts now,
Yeah.
right? So don't play around,
Right.
right? Don't be out here playing around. Get the work done, and do better." And I know they're young, right? And I'm 50, and it's one of those things where it's kind of like when you're a child and your parents talk to you, and you're like, you just kind of sitting there, and you're like, oh.
Yep. Yep.
And I get that feeling, but but it's one of those things to where I'm trying to drop wisdom, and I know they may not trying to hear from me, but hopefully, they get what I'm trying to say. Um, but I'm hoping that they get me, and hopefully, my job, I get some time with them because most of when I spend time with them is about teaching them
Mm-hmm.
how to use a tool so that they can work on a project. Uh,
Yeah.
but I'm hoping that I get a chance to speak with them a little more with some
Mhm.
mentoring stuff. But I want them to love life, and I
Mm.
want them to put in the work. Because again, in this life, and I've told kids in before, in this life you pay.
Mhm.
Either you're gonna pay now or you're gonna pay later. And I hope that you pay now,
Yeah.
then you pay later.
Mhm. Yeah, and what you're talking about, you're giving them the lesson right now, but we know that what really matters is that follow-up that you're gonna have with those kids later, following up and asking them, how's math class going? How's English class going? What's your GPA look like? What are you doing to write for those scholarships? And it only takes one positive role model to change the trajectory of a child's life. And who knows, that may be you. That may be you investing in those kids and helping them to set that better course and to learn from your mistakes. Um, I know my biological children. They had those glassy eyes and that look in their face whenever I would try to instill these lessons into them. But it's that follow through, it's that follow up and being intentional with them. So you're planting seeds and you're changing lives. So the other way that you're changing lives, as I said before, is your book, The Edupreneur. And so I don't know if you want to talk about your book today or if you want to talk about another passion project that you've got going on in education.
We can do the book. I'm cool with that.
Okay. Tell us more about the book and where we can find it and just a little synopsis of what the book's about.
Well, it's a business guide for educators. It took me about a year and a half to write the book, and I wanted it because I wanted to write a business book for educators. I wanted to sort of simplify what I have learned in business, what I have studied from in business books, watching YouTube, business people. When I say business people, I'm talking about like Harvard folks and other folks related to business. To put it in terms that educators can understand, so that for those educators who don't have like a business background, that
Right.
they can actually understand, so that when I'm interested in, when I have this crazy idea of, hey, I want to create a business,
Mm-hmm.
this is where I start, and this is how I grow my business. And that is what happened. And then I also put in, since you have this book, and thank you for getting it,
Yeah, I do. And
Um,
I got it on Amazon so that our listeners can go out to Amazon and they can pick up the Edupreneur and check out the blueprint to jumpstart and scale your education business.
yes, yes. And you'll see there's some quotes, narratives from people that I interviewed
Hmm.
that are in there with, so they tell their stories of how they got started in different pieces in there. So it was just really something that I wanted to put together for educators, that I hope will give them the knowledge and gems to really grow their education business.
Yeah. And I love the fact that you um, pulled together that collective wisdom. You know, we are so much stronger together. And so there's several different contributing authors in the book too. And I want to encourage our listeners to go out and to get the book today. And then Dr. Will, after this podcast, where can they connect with you?
Um, Holler at me on LinkedIn and on Instagram.
All right. Well, thank you today for your time and thanks for being on the podcast. And I look forward to watching you close that hope gap, and we will stay connected in the future.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Take care. Leading with Hope is an intentional practice requiring self-reflection and self-awareness. Check out my website at leadwithhope.net and subscribe to my monthly blog. My blog will help you build self-efficacy and lead with hope. Thanks for tuning in and have a great day.